Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Friday, the 4th of April 2025. These are the stories that we will try to understand and decipher during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Waqf Amendment Bill that has been passed by the Indian Parliament and all the issues that it poses when it comes to the Muslim minority in India. Already the Muslim minority in India is facing a lot of issues, a lot of troubles due to the various laws that have been passed by the BJP-led government. This time is very similar to it, but adds to the agony of the already agonized Muslims across India and in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well. There's a lot of protest that has emanated, whether it be from the opposition parties in the Indian Parliament or whether it be from the Muslim bodies across India. This will it lead to some kind of backwards direction as far as this law is concerned? Will there be any amendment in this law? Is the main question that a lot of people have in their minds, and we will try to decipher that in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the US tariffs. Now, these US tariffs that have been imposed by Donald Trump on Wednesday, when he announced a universal baseline of 10% tariff on imports into the US, what he dubbed as Liberation Day. But of course, it might be the Liberation Day for the US, but it has a lot of effects on global economy and on the global relations or the whole paradigm of how the world was moving around. A new world order seems to be in the making, but will it have any effect on the current scenario within the world is what we will discuss in our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns South Korea's constitutional court that has decided to oust President Yoon Suk Yeol. He has been ousted today by the constitutional bench. That of course we all know why it happened when he tried to impose martial law. Then he backed out of that. But the resultant uproar within the country and within the South Korean parliament has now led to this, and also constitutionally the court has also sided with the other parties who said that this move by the South Korean president was unlawful. Finally, today is the 46th death anniversary of Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and of course we all remember him as the founder of Pakistan People's Party, and various messages have emanated across Pakistan on this day, and of course one message was also by our Prime Minister, who said that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Shaheed was a champion of democratic values in Pakistan. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the new Waqf Amendment Bill that has now been passed by both houses of the Parliament, the lower house and the upper house, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Now, although with the majority, but there was a significant portion of both sides of the Parliament that also opposed it. What are going to be the expectations once this law has been passed? What are the resultant effects on the Muslim minority within India is what we will discuss in this segment. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Saith Usama Chitrali Sahab. He's an international relations expert. Thank you very much, Chitrali Sahab, to have joined us. And in the studios, we've been joined by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, who is an executive director of CISS in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma, to have joined us. We'll begin with you, Chitrali Sahab. The Bharatiya Janata Party, despite a protest from the opposition, has now passed this controversial Waqf Amendment Bill and the Muslim Waqf Abolition Bill by the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. Both have now passed it. All the amendments that were proposed by the opposition were rejected. How does this highlight the blatant disregard for Muslim minorities in India?
I think when we begin with this thing and looking up to this all legislation pattern, I think India claims for the secular structure and everything claims being portrayed as a false, and for which they were being claimed even in the today's discussion from one lecture, a student said that having a discussion with an Indian, he was saying, I said that you people promised the Muslim communities that we are the secular country and everyone is going to live with the freedom, but now the freedom is challenged. And focusedly this bill is considered as for the Muslim, it's a black day. If you see the reaction of the Owaisi and the other opposition Muslim leaders, what reaction they came from, it shows that it's a black day for the whole Muslim, and they were wholesomely targeted through this Waqf bill, because all the challenges which are raising up right now is upon, and also conflicting with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If I just quickly go through it, the Article 2, non-discrimination, where it states Article 18, freedom of religion, Article 26, right to education, like cultural and the social education, which is gives the open right from the under the UDHR, right to the cultural participation from the Article 27 and Article 17, right to the property. So these all mean like it is directly addressing even concerning to the humanitarian assistance, and the humanitarian grounds are also being questioned after this bill in the India.
That is true, but a lot of things are being questioned, but nothing is being done despite this questioning. Dr. Asma, Shakir, Khawaja, when you look at how the opposition parties reacted in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, in the Rajya Sabha, 95 votes were cast in opposition, while 128 votes were cast in favor. In the Lok Sabha, 232 members voted in opposition, while 288 members voted in favor of this Waqf Amendment Bill. Does this bill and even such other such decisions taken by the BJP not shows that the BJP is intent on doing whatever it wants with the country to the detriment of the minorities, specifically Muslims?
Thank you for asking such a pertinent question. This act is only a continuation of BJP's policies, which are based on inculcating discrimination in Indian constitution and laws. If we see what happened when BJP revoked Article 370 without the consent of Kashmiri people. Now this bill was presented by none other than Muhammad Ali Jinnah, we know as Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, in 1913. Quaid-e-Azam presented this bill in, at that time, the Indian Legislative Council, and that bill was passed by then. So to me, it appears as BJP's obsession with deleting or erasing the past of South Asia, which is definitely marked by the contributions of Muslims. And as Asaduddin Siddiqui said, that this bill is illegally wants control on the properties owned by Muslims, or properties dedicated by Muslims in the name of Allah, and that is direct interference in the religious freedom of Muslims. And the same act is not being imposed on Hindu temples, where the mountains of gold are available. And but another Shia Indian scholar said this, that those gold mountains can improve the economy of India, but BJP government is completely silent about that, and only they need to implement so-called transparency on Muslim Waqf properties, and those properties are a mean to help Muslim community, which is already marginalized and the least I would say developed minority in whole India. This act is only a continuation what is happening or what is going in Manipur against the Christian minorities. This is the continuation of the Indian Hindutva mindset, which didn't respect Golden Temple, which had no empathy for the Muslims' feelings for Babri Mosque, which are claiming or trying to destroy Aurangzeb's tomb, which and again now and claiming to destroy several other mosques, and now this Muslim Waqf bill. Only it is hitting upon the interests of Muslims, which are like they are already marginalized, and it is a manifestation of India's slide into, or I would say they have already reached there, into a majoritarian state, where majority is deciding what minority deserve, what minority should do, what minority should have. And this again solidify our faith that Muslims were not safe in a majoritarian Hindu state when our leaders thought it in 1947. Again, let me add it here that recently, I think last week, American government institution, they issued a report and declared India as a religiously polarized state and a state of concern when it comes to religious freedom. And they categorically clearly stated that India is drifting from its so-called image of secularism or claim of secularism mentioned in Indian Constitution, and Indian minorities are unsafe in contemporary India. Therefore, US government should declare India as a state of concern, country of concern when it comes to religious freedom. They also specially mentioned Indian intelligence agency RAW and RAW's extra intracontinental operations to kill the minority leaders.
Asma, this USCIRF's report has been very blatant as far as highlighting what India has been doing to the religious minorities in India, and that is just adds to the whole number of reports that we have seen and talked about in the past programs as well, on how India is blatantly trying to usher in an authoritarian regime when it comes to Hindus. It is trying to make India into Hindustan, a country for the Hindus of the region, and not a country that was supposed to be, as they themselves have said time and again, the largest democracy and a pluralistic country. It is no longer that. I'll come to you a bit later in the show, Chitrali Sahab. I'll talk about two comments that have come as a result of the passage of this bill. The Speaker of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, Abdul Rahim Rathar, calls the passage of this bill a direct violation of the Constitution. He says that the bill contradicts Section 25, which guarantees the right to religion. He also says that any attempt to override such rights could set a dangerous precedent. The Muttahida Majlis Ulema, which is the largest representative forum of the ulama and mashayikh, also says that this is a direct interference in the religious affairs of the Muslims to curtail the autonomy of these bodies by India and to further control them. Isn't this a direct interference in the religious affairs of the Muslims, as the MMU points out, to curtail the autonomy of these bodies by India and to further control them?
As our fellow Dr. Asma pointed out these things, that this bill is directly focusing about the Muslims, not the Hindu temples, and the other, even the minorities are not discussed that much in it. So it is truly directly affecting the only the Muslim institutions and the Muslim social institution. Right now you talked about the Constitution of the India. We all know that the Constitution of the India, which was used to be somewhere in the past, we see the practice somewhere it was to have a safe side for the humans, but from the last regime of the Bharatiya Janata Party, where the BJP comes, the regime of, I say, the RSS or the other mindset are influencing the people and the public right now. Somewhere, anywhere you will look up to the India, even the Ramazan was a some way challenge for the Muslims in many of the regions to practice their things. Right now, looking up to this bill, it is even taking up their mosques and these things. Right now, in this bill, if you look up, 2 non-Muslim members are compulsory to be added in the board, and this is it raises a question that how they are going to contribute. So, like, I do have a right to get to become a member of some Hindu temple board or become a trustee member of a Hindu practicing trust. So this is a thing where the question arises. This bill is directly violating a right of a common human right, and someday it's going to be with the Christianity, as the Manipur incidents are going on. The Christianity going to be a target of one day. This Hindutva concept is going to not only challenge this India thing, but it's going to be a challenge for a whole South Asia, because the radicalization spreads. The radicalization
has already spread, and the radicalization is that of the Hindu community within India, and that is what it is doing. It is radicalizing, it's trying to radicalize India and trying to impose their own ideology over all the other ideologies.
And somewhere you see that the regional disability and these things, most of, if you can look across the history, if I just state of one incident of Khalid Umar, you look up when he entered the Palestine in his regime, and they say offer a prayer in a church. So he said, no, I will not. If I offer it today, the Muslim might think it as a right of them. So from that day, it never happened with. And the Waqf, even if you see in Pakistan till date, none of a church, none of a Hindu temple, none of any Muslim community faced any challenge. Yes, there are some challenges or the events have happened, but no one has appreciated it or endorsed it. Like if you look up to a common man, like the incident of Joharabat, no one has appreciated that thing. So I say it's a duty of a common Indian or a common citizen of an Indian right now to like participate in terms of on a humanitarian ground.
Yes, but
and even UN have to intervene in, and I would say
yes,
UN have to intervene in this thing, because it's a direct.
But the United Nations will not intervene, in my point of view, because the way we are seeing the recent events that are unfolding across the world, and the way the UN has been totally ineffective as far as trying to handle the situation. So I don't think they will.
So it's question on the Muslim leadership around the world now.
Let's see what happens. Dr. Asma. Dr. Asma, don't you feel this bill clearly reflects how the BJP despises Muslims, how they are bringing this law to promote unity in their point of view, but instead they are using it to serve their own agenda, and of course the blatant violation of their own constitution in that respect?
Yeah, rightly pointed out. Such activities are only BJP's effort to fulfill their election manifesto, and whatever they said or they wrote in their election manifesto, they are doing that. And instead of focusing on the development of India or economy of India, they again using this election winning mantra of marginalizing Muslims, and in a sense that trying to eradicate Muslims and their interests from India is, if you know that there are several incidents when Hindu radicals, RSS goons, they claimed that they told people not to buy things from Muslim shops and all those activities. So the situation is getting worse for minorities, especially Muslims living in India. And then this is again this would polarize India, and for short-term gains, BJP is actually pushing India into a long-term loss. And as I always say, that a big country like India is, federation or federal autonomy is the only solution to keep them as a country. And if India would keep on working on being a majoritarian state, the sense or the perception of deprivation and being marginalized and not being stakeholder in larger government system would definitely work negatively for the Indian state. And that is the thing with the common man of India has to realize, because it is not about BJP. It is the people who collectively believe that what BJP is saying that should be implemented in India. And here we should, I think, talk about the 232 votes which were casted against the bill. But definitely they don't matter in democracy, and because as Allama Iqbal said, that Jamhuriyat mein bandon ko gina karte hain, tola nahi karte. So what if even if the sanity of 232 parliamentarians, that is invalid in front of the majority votes which are pushing India into I think we use as academicians the term the Bell model. So into a bell of polarization, more bloodshed and more insecurity for minorities. You rightly said that there are different international institutions which are raising the alarms, which are telling the world that India is a dangerous country for minorities. If you remember, last year an institution issued the report that minorities in India are at the brink of genocide by Hindu majority groups. And this is what we are seeing right now, with the genocide of Christians and inaudibility of Muslims when it comes to their interest, inaudibility of Kashmiris when it comes to their demand. And such inaudibility is not a characteristic of democracy. Democracy is not merely an electoral process. It's a set of value which matters. When you claim to be so-called falsely claim, I would say, the largest democracy of the world, you are not. India is not, because India is not safeguarding the interests of minorities, whether they are religious minorities or they are ethnic minorities, whether they are Sikhs, they are Kashmiris, Manipuris, Nagalandis, Muslims, no one is feeling protected and
I totally agree with you. No one is feeling protected as we speak, because today it is the Muslims, tomorrow it could be the Christians, then it could be the Dalits, then it could be the Sikhs, and all the minorities as we speak, because of this law being passed, are at danger, are at peril in the weeks and in the months and the years to come. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma, Shakir, Khawaja, to have joined us. Last question to you, and I want a short answer, Chitrali Saab. Does this bill set a precedent for future governmental interference in religious affairs, and what are the potential long-term implications as far as religious freedom in India is concerned?
Definitely, the first thing, the practices, the practicing control, as we see. If we go back to some of the regions where the Muslims are not even take up the fastings and and most of the communal activities are going to be challenged. Same like some of the Indian states, the people cannot offer a Jummah prayer in a grounds or and even I came to know about some areas in India and UP that the people were not allowed to have the sermons of the Eid over there, but which has been passed some days ago. So I think it's going to be directly controlled, and even direct interference will challenge the practice of a common human. A common human. I'm saying the common, not Muslim. A common human. As you say, as you also stated, that one day it will be a Christian, the other day they will be the Sikh. Someone going to face this fate also.
So you feel that there are going to be long-term implications, and long-term implications not only for the Muslims but also for other religions.
That is why I say everyone has to raise the voice for this bill, and need to be reviewed again.
All right. Thank you very much, Usama, Chitrali Sahab, to have joined us, to have discussed this segment. It's important. It's important to discuss because religious freedom is pertinent for any so-called democracy in the world, whether it be India or any other country. We'll be back. We now go to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, and our second story concerns the US tariffs. Now, the United States, not the United Nations, but the United States has imposed a baseline tariff of 10% on almost all of the countries across the world. He says this is a universal baseline tariff on imports from the US. He dubs it the Liberation Day. He pins the tax hikes as a blow against unfair trade practices, painting a portrait of the US as a country exploited by even its closest allies. We've been joined by Mark Meirowitz, political activist, who joins us all the way from the US. Mark, thank you very much to have joined us. Lovely to see you after a couple of days' time. Mark, let's begin with what Donald Trump says. He says that US is a country that has been exploited by even its closest allies, and he dubs this day when he imposes the universal tariffs on almost all of the countries of the world as a Liberation Day. I'd like to understand your perspective as an American as far as these tariffs are concerned, and what is going to be the implication on the common man in the US?
Well, it's certainly going to hit the common man, but where it hits first is in the stock market. And in the first term, Trump basically was very worried about the stock market. Obviously, now the market is falling very precipitously. I just looked at the market fall, particularly on the announcement of the Chinese reciprocal tariffs. I could tell you the Wall Street Journal, which is a good indicator of how the markets think, is very, very unhappy about these tariffs. But it's not only the money, the stock market community, it's also the average person who is going to the store to buy products is going to be hit with greater expenses. You're asking me on the impact in general is going to be quite, I think, severe in the beginning. The idea is, though, what Trump is talking about, and Rubio as well explaining it, is a reset because America feels, as you indicated, Trump feels that America's been taken advantage of, particularly by China. China, a company that exports to a large consumer market in the United States. And basically, it's a trade war with China. And I think the way I was thinking about it is Trump, this is yet another, let's say, feather in the quiver of Trump against China, his movement against China. But I do think there's an element of fairness in what Trump is saying. It's accurate. The problem is when you put out such a powerful policy, you cause a dislocation in the entire economy of the United States and the economy of the world, and then we end up with a recession. So maybe the things that Trump intended to do initially are going to fall by the wayside. In fact, in the Wall Street Journal, they actually advocate the fact that Trump does not have power under our laws to implement these tariffs. And they're saying someone should bring a lawsuit. So that's the Wall Street Journal. I think that's a good idea of how to understand the way, let's say, elites in this country think about it, but it also hurts the common man as well.
You know, I think it's much more complex than we might think it is on the fore. I think there's a lot of subtext to this whole situation regarding the tariffs, which are going to have national, regional and global implications as well. I'll come to my guests in the studios. We've been joined by Zamir, Ahmad, Awan Saab, foreign affairs expert in the studios. Thank you very much, Zamir Saab, to have joined us. Zamir Saab, tariffs, for all our laymen who don't know, are typically charged as a percentage of the price that a buyer pays a foreign seller. Now, in the US, tariffs are collected by the Customs and Border Protection agents at 328 ports of entry across the country. Normally, tariffs are used as a tool to manage trade. If you've got a homegrown industry and you are worried that it's facing competition, then you can put a tariff up to a certain level as far as the prices of products is concerned. But now that we see this whole global increase in US tariffs that has been imposed on Wednesday by Donald Trump, how justified do you feel the US is in imposing these tariffs?
Thank you very much. I have a different opinion about this one. One aspect, what will be the outcome of this tariff? The second thing, is justified or not? Look logically. If a country has the right to impose tariff on American products, why not the American have the right to impose tariff on the other countries? The logic. The logic. Of course, it will have a negative impact or adverse impact on the global economy, and it will change the trading partners, trading routes, trading alliances. It will have a very, very severe impact on the global trade and global economy. That's a different issue. But the justification, I do not think that it is absolutely wrong.
All right.
I don't think it is absolutely wrong.
You feel that Donald Trump is to some extent justified in imposing these tariffs?
I mean that if other countries have the right to impose the tariff on American products, why not the American has the right to impose the tariff on the other country's product?
All right.
This is reciprocal.
All right, I understand. Mark, I'd like to understand, is Donald Trump using these tariffs as a tool? Is he wielding it as a weapon or as a threat in negotiations to get more things, as he has done in the past as well? Because all of his deals or all of his decisions taken have been taken as a tool for negotiations. Is it also one of those tools?
There's no question about it, Omar, because it's Trump who has authored the art of the deal. Everything about it is deals. The only thing is that I just wanted to say, just as an important point, that the tariffs, when analyzed, seem to be very, let's say, poorly prepared, because, in fact, the reciprocal tariffs, I hear my distinguished colleague's point, whether this is fair or not, the impact of an American trade war with China on the world or with these other countries is mammoth and could tank the world economy. And so I think we're beyond this question of fairness. Yes, the other people have been dumping on America, so we need to dump on them. That's worrisome because we already did this historically with the holy tariff, and that was a disaster and led the United States.
Mark, I have to cut you short. We have to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we're discussing US tariffs, and we were discussing with Mark Meirowitz. Mark, you were saying?
Well, first of all, I think the one problem is that the way they imposed it is some ways kind of strange, because taking the EU, for example, if you look EU and some others, the actual effective rate of the tariffs they impose, let's say EU is 2.7%, Trump's tariff was 20%. And the other anomaly was Nike moved its operations from part of it, in terms of some of it, from China to Vietnam. And so the United States now plugged the tariff on Vietnam. So it isn't, the way they've imposed it is not, in some respects, logical. The United States press was full of the stories where he's imposing tariffs on some islands where there are no people living and they're penguins. So first of all, that's one part of it. It's a little irrational. But I think the point that you make about the deal making and negotiation is really the key. And I would say, just as a subtext here, is the fact that we don't challenge China on its militarization, on its actions, its militaristic actions towards Taiwan, its other repression of its people. Well, we do. We're really good at having trade wars with China. And I think that is very problematic. We need to address China as a whole. I'm concerned about this policy because also Trump thought it was a little disturbance, and it really is a disturbance to the entire world economy. Did they understand that when they implemented it? I really think
there are a lot of lacunas in, as you say, which kind of point towards a better understanding of how to implement this policy in letter and principle towards all the countries of the world, as has been declared by Donald Trump, and what repercussions it could have and how they need to be imposed and in which direction this needs to go. Coming to you, Zamir Saab, Canada and EU want countermeasures against these US tariffs. Indians say that the tariffs are higher than expected. The United Kingdom says it will not hesitate to act on this. China urges the US to immediately cancel the latest tariffs. Its Commerce Ministry in a statement vows countermeasures to safeguard its own interests. What form of retaliatory tariffs, in your point of view, could countries like China, EU, Canada, the UK could impose in response to these tariffs, and what could be the potential consequences of these counter tariffs towards the economy, towards the journey purchasing power of the common man?
I just said the justification for imposing tariff, but there are a lot of complications and repercussions. Of course, definitely other nations will also reciprocally increase their tariffs. China, EU, Canada, all the other countries have the right to impose higher tariff on American products. And then, of course, it is the initiation of a new trade war, tariff war, and this is not benefiting anyone. I mean, neither American will be benefited, nor the other countries will be benefited. It will have the adverse impact on the global economy. Definitely, the new trading partners will emerge. New trading alliance will emerge. One side is the America, the other side, the whole of the world will cooperate with each other. And even the regional countries will make the alliances. So there will be a lot of repercussions.
All right, all right. Speaking of repercussions, Mark, do you feel that this US tariffs and counter tariffs could lead to the formation of new trade alliances or a strengthening of existing alliances that exist between certain nations across the world that seek to counterbalance the US trade policies, and what effect could that have on global politics?
I'm not an economist, so I can't really answer the economic part of it. But politically, I would say that, the American economy is the gigantic behemoth here. And what Rubio and what Trump want to do is promote more U.S. manufacturing, more things we're making here because we don't make anything. And all we do is buy products from the rest of the world. That's what they're saying. So I think that before I figure out about the global trade alliances, I need to also understand whether or not it is feasible in America to start doing what Trump and Rubio want them to do. Or we'll end up with, and even these other alliances will not have time to catch up to the fact that the economy, the world economy, as you pointed out, is going to tank. We're going to have a world recession. I hope not a depression. I mean, this thing is a shocker. It's a shock to the system. I mean, the EU, you mentioned the EU, that's an alliance. I think basically the subtext again also is Trump's attitude towards adversaries and allies, which is also very perplexing. I understand the point about adversaries in China. I don't understand the idea of imposing punishments on our own allies, America's allies. That includes Canada and EU and Europe and so forth. and also India and Pakistan. I mean, why not select China and the others who are really dumping on our market and taking advantage of us, and do that rather than a global one phase across the world, and you just attack your allies and your adversaries. I think that's also a very poorly planned idea, and you get the repercussions and all these alliances. I would say this also, Omar, about alliances. Europe's been talking a lot about the fact that America is not interested in Europe, and they need their own alliance, not on trade, but they need it on defense and security. As far as I'm concerned, Europe has not been capable of getting their act together at all. So I don't think they're going to do it on the economy either, to the extent that they haven't already.
Let's see. Let's see, Mark. Let's see how things move forward, Mark. Anyways, Zamir Saab, coming to you, what impact? He talked about Pakistan. Mark talked about Pakistan. What impact is this going to have also on Pakistan? Because state tariffs are also being imposed on Pakistan, 29%, if I'm not wrong.
I have different approach on this one also.
Okay.
There will be impact, but very little impact on Pakistan.
Okay.
For example, if there is a 29% tariff on Pakistani products, basically the textiles, we have the competition with other countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam and Laos and some other countries. They also facing the similar problems. Maybe India has 26% or 27% tariff, but Vietnam and other countries and Bangladesh has 37%, 49% and very high tariff. So still we have the competition edge over the other exporter to the textile exporter to the USA. So there will be little impact. Only India has the less, India and Turkey. Turkey has only 10% tariff. We might have to face competition from Turkey and India, but we have still edge over Vietnam, Bangladesh and many other countries. So I think there will be impact, but not very huge. On the other hand, that the Pakistani textile industry is into the new phase. It used to be the Saith culture, but now their children has been to the world-class universities. They are equipped with the latest knowledge, technology and techniques and management skills. They are very well educated. They can cope up with these emerging situations.
All right. Mark, last question to you. I understand that these policies have been imposed to somehow protect the domestic industries. But how are these tariffs also going to affect the US manufacturers that rely on imported components? And also, how could these tariffs influence the prices of consumer goods such as electronics, such as automobiles? We know the number of tariffs that have been imposed as far as foreign manufactured automobiles are concerned in the US and globally. How is that going to impact? I mean, how is your purchasing power for an automobile or for an electronic good going to be impacted by it?
First of all, the automobile tariff, I think, is 25%, and that's going to be a shocker. But that was also your first question, which is a great question. It will affect the idea is to motivate our manufacturers to make more here. Secondly, the purchasing power of Americans is now severely reduced with the retaliatory tariffs. The other thing that we didn't really talk about is the development. I think my colleague implied in terms of the students going to universities, technology, services, AI. That's a big part of the world economy today too. How is that going to work? In other words, the United States, according to Rubio, says we don't make anything here. Are we going to actually become a manufacturing state in the United States? We're way beyond that. So free trade, global trade is the solution to world peace, free trade. And making these requirements and these imposition of these tariffs interferes with freedom and the free trade in the world and peace in the world. There's no question about it. So I think this is a gigantic mess, to put it in a most political way. It's a mess, and it needs to be toned down and unraveled. And by the way, if I read correctly, the United States Senate voted yesterday to terminate the tariff on Canada. The House also has to approve it. It's a resolution. So the reaction from Congress, to your point, American constituents are contacting their congressmen and senators, and they're screaming that we're going to have to be paying so much more for everything. And what's the justification?
Going to be immense, and as you said, this is a mess. That comes from you, a quote unquote. So let's see what happens in the next couple of days and weeks, and how the US government impose these tariffs on the different countries, and whether they will also reflect on these. Maybe there will be changes in the coming days, who knows. Maybe this is a negotiation tactic, who knows. Thank you very much, Mark Meirowitz, to have joined us, and thank you very much, Zamir Ahmad Awan sahab, also to have joined us in the studios to discuss the US tariffs and its implication and its repercussion, and what effect it's going to have globally and also in Pakistan. Last two stories very quickly. First, South Korea's Constitutional Court has now decided to oust President Yoon Suk Yeol on Friday. It decided to usher in an election after it upheld the parliament's impeachment over his opposition of martial law that had sparked the nation's worst political crisis in decades. June the 3rd is the date that is being proposed, more or less, but that could change as far as these elections are concerned. Finally, today is a Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's 46th death anniversary. He was a champion of democratic values in Pakistan. This is our Prime Minister paying homage to Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He said his contribution to the promotion of democracy and democratic values in Pakistan will always be remembered. And Pakistan got the unanimous constitution of 1973 during his regime as well, and he also played an important role in the unity of the Muslim Ummah. His death anniversary is being observed across Pakistan today, and of course his work for Pakistan and for democracy cannot be denied. With that, we come to an end of today's Newsroom. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll see inshallah see you in a couple of days. Allah Hafiz.